Hello and welcome to my knitting studio. I'm Carrie and I'm really excited to talk about warm weather knitting today. So spring and summer knits like tees, tanks, etc. are some of my favorite garment projects to make, and when I look back at all of the projects that I've done on Ravelry, a good majority of my garment projects are spring and summer knits. I've made tons of tanks, tons of tees, maybe not tons of tees, several tees. But I find that warm weather knits are actually some of my most versatile and most worn knits, because not only can you wear them in warm weather, you can also wear them in more transitional times like spring and fall. And I mean, even in the winter, if you're wearing it as like a camisole under a heavier cardigan, they're honestly really versatile pieces that, as I said, I wear just all the time. So I wanted to share my warm weather knitting plans today. And these plans are definitely loose plans. I have a lot more project ideas here than I likely have time to knit over the spring and summer, but I kind of have enough here to be able to keep my creativity flowing, have different types of projects going on, and be able to work on things that excite me and not necessarily be tied down to like exact specific projects and only these projects that are going to be able to be worked within the time frame. So I do have some pretty solid plans, as well as some just like yarns that I am interested in using this season that don't have specific projects tied to them yet as well. So about half of the projects that I have are with new yarns that I purchased earlier this year, as well as the other half with stash yarns that I've had for quite a long time. So I definitely will be working with a mix of new and old yarns, and I'm kind of going to structure the video like that, where I'm going to go over all of my new purchases and what I'm planning to make with those purchases, if I have solid plans for them. Most of them I do, some of them I'm not 100% landed on yet. And then same thing for all of my stash yarns as well. I made two bigger purchases in the first couple of months of the year to kind of gear up for spring and summer knittings, because I didn't have as many sweater quantities in, summer fiber contents like cotton, linen, silk, etc., or just lighter weight yarns like fingering weight. So I kind of wanted to buffer up what I had available to me to work from. So the first purchases that I made were from Purl Soho, and I focused on warm weather fiber blends that would be washable, like washer and dryerable, because with warm weather knits, you're wearing them when it's hot outside, you may be sweating more, etc., and that means you have to wash them more frequently. So easy care can be a really nice thing to have for spring and summer knits, though I absolutely still love wearing wool, especially wool fingering weight items, and the natural properties of wool actually do work really well, at least in my climate and my kind of like use case for warm weather knits. Like, I work an office job with air conditioning, I'm often inside, I'm not spending like my entire days outdoors. I would probably have very different thoughts and feelings about warm weather knits and the fibers to use for warm weather knits if I was like primarily more outside or like didn't have access to good air conditioning all of the time. So that being said, I do also love the easy care aspect of things like cotton, linen, etc. So I purchased two different yarns in a couple of different colors each. So I will go through these ones first. These are Oleander from Purl Soho. This is a green colorway called Bay Leaf. It's kind of like a dusty sage green color. It's a little bit darker. And then this one is gray spruce, and I would say, it's a gray spruce color. So these are definitely like somewhat similar colors, but this one is obviously green leaning. This one is obviously more blue leaning. So I am planning to make t-shirts with each of these ones. This one is, the green one is going to be a long sleeve tee, and then the blue-gray one will be a short sleeve tee. So I've actually swatched with both of these already, and I will show you my swatches. So the first swatch that I have here is the green bay leaf color. And I don't think I mentioned, Oleander is a 50% cotton, 50% linen blend. And I was thinking that I would make up a long sleeve version of my Quotidian Tee. I just finished a long sleeve version of this pattern a few weeks ago, but that was with like a lace weight wool held with lace weight mohair, so definitely like a true kind of winter piece. But I love the finished fit of it, and I was thinking that I would absolutely love a cotton linen version for more like transitional weather. So spring and fall with long sleeves would be a great option for this. So I swatched, I met gauge, so I'm excited to cast on for that soon and create another wardrobe staple piece. This would be my fourth time knitting that pattern. So I've knit two t-shirts, like short sleeve t-shirts, and then the one long sleeve, and now this would be a second long sleeve. And I think for this one I would knit a straight body fit and the slightly more relaxed sleeve. and probably a little bit shorter than I made my long sleeve version of the kind of more wintry one. So just making a little bit more, you know, easy summery, though not truly summery. I'm probably not really going to wear it in the summer as a long sleeve item, but definitely will be good for spring and fall. And then for the gray spruce, I also swatched with that yarn already, and I love the drape of this one. This is just a 1x1 broken rib stitch. And what I'm planning to do with this is regrade my Ridgeview Tee pattern to work with fingering weight yarn. So that pattern is a DK weight pattern. I've knitted a couple of versions of that one already in DK weight yarn, and I absolutely love it. It has great textured details with all over broken rib, and then shaping that creates a V where you have garter in the center. So you still have like a scoop neck on the garment, but you have like a V neck stitch effect, which is really fun, really nice to wear. And I just would love to have a lightweight version of this pattern as well. So I don't know if this would be something that I would actually like release as a new pattern. I'm just going to do the math for my size to regrade it for this project here, and who knows, maybe I will do the work to fully release it as a new pattern, maybe add long sleeves to that one as well, so you can have a nice lightweight long sleeve option. That's a problem for later, Carrie. Today Carrie just wants to have a t-shirt, so that's what we're going to focus on for this project and not worry about turning it into a pattern or anything. The next two yarns that I got from Purl Soho are both Santolina, and I used this yarn last year while making up a parsed tank, and I really liked working with it. I like the finished fabric. I've been machine washing and machine drying that garment. It's been holding up great. So that is the plan for care for these ones as well. And these will be for my daughter. So I got two different colors of pink. This is a, you know, darker dusty pink and a lighter peachy pink. This is the red smoke color, and I am planning to knit up a Plinth Tee in her current size, which would be the next size up is a size 4. So that is the size that I would be making, and I knit several of these for her last year, and they're really cute. Now I'm just looking to make another one in her current size, and also one that will be machine washable because all of her other ones are in wool. You know, she's a toddler, she gets quite messy doing art or just like eating or whatever she's doing, toddler things. And so having a machine washable option will definitely be great for my part, for having to hand wash a little less frequently. So excited to knit up a cute little Plinth Tee in this. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do the modification for like the frillier, rufflier hem or just like the standard kind of like more peplum-ish hem. Might do the ruffly hem. We'll see on yarn estimates, because I also want to use the leftovers for that project to make a little striped tee with this yarn. So this one is the peach lily color, and I want to make a little striped tee with this as the base color and the leftovers from this other project as the contrast color of the stripe. So I think that will be really cute. My daughter has been expressing lots of interest in things that are pink, so she has a couple of pink shirts and pants that she's very into. Alternately, she's also very interested in black things, so it's either I have like a pink sparkly baby or like a goth baby, and it's kind of funny. But I thought these would be really cute for her and her current preferences, so that is the plan for these. Next, I made a couple of purchases from Amy Shermix. She is a designer of really lovely patterns and also has an online yarn store, so made a couple of purchases from her. First up is Knitting for Olive Merino in the Dusty Artichoke color. I feel like a lot of people have made projects in this color. It's just a really lovely, I guess, dusty artichoke, but you know, kind of light sage color. And I got enough to make a t-shirt out of this one, so I'm planning to design a tee, and I already knit up a little swatch. So you can see that here. Here's the yarn and the swatch. So what is fun about this swatch here is the lateral braid detail, and I think you can kind of see that there's a little bit of laciness between the lateral braid rows. So when you're working a lateral braid, the stitches kind of elongate on the row after you work the lateral braid. So I'm kind of taking advantage of those elongated stitches to create a kind of lacework effect without actually doing any lace work. So the plan for this t-shirt is a drop shoulder tee where this lateral braid detail goes over the shoulder and kind of working some short rows to shape the shoulder on both the front and the back. Then picking up stitches around the armhole for a sleeve also in the same lateral braid. So I'll kind of have like sort of lacy short sleeve on it, and then having a somewhat deep, maybe, you know, a few inches tall of lateral braiding at the bottom hem as well, with some A-line shaping, maybe slightly more like swing shaping rather than A-line. So A-line shaping is often like just along the side seam. So I'd be placing shaping kind of throughout the body to create more of a circular silhouette and a slight swing. So I haven't decided yet as to like how much bigger it's going to get at the hem, but instead of, you know, kind of like the triangle shape that A-line shaping makes on a garment, it'll have like, you know, more of a circular hem. So it'll be a little bit floatier than a standard A-line. So that's kind of the plan here. And then I don't think I talked about the neckline. So I'm planning to do a V-neck at both the front and the back, where the front V-neck is a little bit deeper than the back V-neck. So the inspiration for this is actually just like a ready-to-wear long sleeve tee that I own, where it has, you know, kind of a wide V-neck and the front is lower than the back. I love to wear this. It's just kind of like a basic tee, and love that it has a V-neck on both sides. And if you really wanted to, you could totally reverse it if you wanted a shallower V in the front versus the deeper V. So that is kind of the plan, that you could have a bit of reversibility there should you desire, if you wanted to, you know, change up how deep your V is. So that is kind of the inspiration there. That is a raglan tee, but this will be a drop shoulder tee, as I mentioned, but that double V neckline was kind of my inspiration there. And then layering on the aspect of the lateral braid detailing throughout the garment. I think it's going to be really pretty, really nice to wear, and just kind of like an elevated basic in my wardrobe. The next yarn I got is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, and this is the Dusty Honey color. And I have not knit with Pure Silk before. Well, I guess I've swatched with it, but I haven't knit a project with it. But I'm really excited to see how a garment in this turns out. I think it's gonna look really lovely with the gentle shine that this has and the drape of silk. I actually have not worked with 100% pure silk before either. So not just this yarn, but this fiber content. No, that's a lie. I have worked with 100% silk before, at least I think. It was either silk or 100% tencel. And really lovely, you know, drapey fabric, but that was like in a shawl project, not in a garment. So excited to see how it turns out in a garment especially. And I will show you the swatch that I knit here. So this is kind of an unconventional swatch, where I was swatching the like design idea and not just for like gauge. So I have kind of a weird shape here. So this is a new design idea, and the inspiration behind this is pin-tucked garments. And I've seen a number of pin-tucked dresses, pin-tucked tops, and I kind of wanted to translate that same aesthetic into a garment. So I'm using slipped stitches here to kind of create the pin-tucked effect, and then some increases at the bottom of the slip stitches to create that gathered effect that you have when the pin tuck releases on a traditional woven fabric that you're actually, you know, stitching and pin tucking. So kind of a similar effect there, where you get a little bit more fullness at the bottom compared to the top. And I'm planning to make this into a tank top, where you kind of have pin tucking at the top of the body that then releases into a nice flowy lower hem. And I'm not sure if you can see here, but I've created a nice little finish for the hem that's a little bit sturdier than just an I-cord edge. So I did a little bit of double knitting before going into the hem. I definitely will need to go down a needle size on the finished project, because this is definitely a little bit looser gauge than the rest of it and kind of flares out a little bit. But I think if I go down a needle size or two, that'll really help to tidy things up, and I think it'll just kind of create a nice weight to aid with the drape of the finished top. So this swatch is like as far as I've gotten on this design idea. I haven't done any math whatsoever. I actually haven't even like sketched out my final garment idea for this one. So just have a swatch, but I really love how the swatch looks here, and I'm excited to continue exploring this idea and actually bringing it to life with, as I said, a sketch and a little bit of math to make this into a fun tank. And again, I think this will be just a really nice elevated wardrobe staple piece that'll get a ton of wear out of and will just fit in really nicely with my day-to-day life. The last yarn that I purchased from Aimee is Albertine from De Rerum Natura, and this is the Armoise colorway, which is a lovely dusty green. Again, if you compare it to the Dusty Artichoke color, it's just kind of like a darker version of the same color, maybe slightly more blue, with the Dusty Artichoke being slightly more green. Albertine is also a fingering weight yarn. It is a wool silk blend, and it's also a little bit heavier than the Knitting for Olive. So the Knitting for Olive Merino is really like a light fingering weight. I would say this is more in like the, you know, standard fingering weight range. So I don't have solid project plans for this one yet. This may kind of just exist in my stash for a little bit while I work through my other projects, but I'm excited to try out the wool and silk blend, and I think it will make a really pretty tee. So those are all of the things that I've purchased for spring projects, and now it's time to get into the projects that I plan to work from stash. So I have 2 projects that I have solidified plans that I definitely want to make, and then I have 3 additional yarns that I probably will not get to all of these, but these are the things that I kind of have on deck available to me when I'm thinking about working on a new project that's not in these solid plans here. So I will of course start with my solid plans. The first yarn that I have here is from Leading Men Fiber Arts. This is a beautiful deep green with slight blue undertones, so kind of a sprucey color. The colorway is Shadows in the Trees, and I've had this for a number of years at this point, probably like at least 4, 5, 6 years maybe. And I'm planning to make a long sleeve version of that double V tee idea that I have with the Knitting for Olive yarn that I got from Amy Sher. So just kind of knitting the same tee, at least for the body, but instead of just having the lateral braid short sleeve, working a full long sleeve and having the lateral braid for the cuff, and just kind of demonstrating both of the options that I'm planning to include in the pattern for that one. So I think this dark green yarn is going to showcase the lateral braid detailing really nicely. I think it'll kind of highlight that laciness with the contrast between the deep yarn color in my skins, so kind of really amping up that lace effect. I think it'll be really pretty. This is standard 75-25 merino nylon sock yarn, and the put up is 463 yards per 100 grams, so definitely on the lighter side of fingering weight yarn. So I don't think I should have any issues with getting this yarn to be the gauge that I've already had here with my swatch and then Knitting for Olive. I have worked other garments with very similar yarn constructions. By very similar, I mean it's probably identical. A lot of hand dyers use very similar bases, so I'm assuming because the yardage put up quantity is the same, it's probably the same base. I've been able to achieve that same gauge, so that is good news. Of course, you know, we'll still have to swatch to confirm, but that's the plan here. And I also think that these look really, really nice together, and that will be a good demonstration of both the short sleeve and this kind of, you know, more summery light color, as well as the darker, kind of more moody fall color for a long sleeve version. Next, I'm planning to use these 2 yarns together. This one is Scanny Dipping Milky Wool in a chartreuse color called Extra Virgin, so it's kind of like olive oil colored. And this is a discontinued base. I think the mill that produced this base just doesn't produce it anymore, so the other dyers that were using similar bases also do not have this anymore. But I've had this in my stash for ages, like probably since 2013, 2014. So I wanted to actually use it. And then same story with this yarn here. This one is Moon Rover Sock in a beautiful gold color. This is a merino yak silk blend. So definitely different fiber contents between these. This one is 80% milk fiber and 20% wool. And this one is 60% merino, 20% yak, and 20% silk. So definitely different fiber contents. I'm probably going to be playing a little bit of, I'm just going to be playing with fire a little bit to see if like the gauge and the drape is going to work together, because the plan for this one is to make another parsed tank. So this is a pattern that I've been working on for like probably literally a year now, actually more than a year now. I think I started working on my first sample like in January of last year. The pattern is almost finally ready, and I wasn't initially planning on knitting another sample, but this was more driven by the fact that these yarns have been sitting in my stash for so long. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I just don't know what other project I would potentially use with either of these. So when I purchased both of these, I was initially thinking about knitting shawls with them. And this one actually came in a yarn club that I was in, and I believe it was a shawl pattern that was kind of the companion pattern for this yarn. That being said, like I've knit a ton of shawls, I'm just not wearing them a ton anymore. I have a couple that I definitely wear like pretty regularly in the winter time, but I'm not really using them as an accessory in the same way that I used to. So I wanted to be able to actually use and wear them because they're both absolutely gorgeous colors. So I thought that I could use my Purse tank pattern, which is a tank top knit in 4 panels, as a great way to be able to use up these single skeins of yarn that I would not be able to really use in a garment project otherwise, at least like, you know, to be able to knit up a whole project in. So the plan for this one is to knit like the front and the back in different colors. So knitting the front in this chartreuse from skeiny dipping, and then knitting the back in gold. And I don't know what I'm going to do for the necklines. There are 3 different neckline options. I could do V, scoop, or square on either the front or the back. I'll probably do a V-neck with this green one because I absolutely love it. Maybe I'll do a V-neck on both sides. Haven't decided there, but I think that's going to be the best way for me to use up these yarns and be able to actually wear them and see them and all of that. Otherwise, they're just going to continue languishing my stash, and they've already been there for like more than a decade. So I feel like it's high time that these actually get used. So excited to start that project soon. So the last 3 yarns that I have, I do not have solid plans for, but I have ideas of project categories that I want to make with them. So I will start off with this Quince & Company linen that I have. This is Quince & Company Sparrow in the port color, which is a beautiful kind of like wine purpley color, like pinky purpley. I bought it from one of my local yarn shops here maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, so it's definitely like been a while. And I know when I bought it, because of the quantity that I have, I was planning to make a tank top, but I have no idea what kind of tank top that I was planning. I have no idea if I had a specific project in mind, if I was planning to design something. I don't know. It's a really lovely color, and I think it will make an absolutely lovely tank top. So some type of tank top is what this would be. Again, I don't really know what. Maybe I could kind of like do a linen version of this swatch here, but I still have to like, you know, go through all of the design and math process for this in this yarn. And I would want to like, you know, fully get through that project before starting another one. Or I might knit something else. So TBD on this one, but it'll be some type of tank top that may or may not happen this summer, but kind of on that yarn list that I plan to have available when I'm thinking about those next projects. Next is this yarn here. It's a beautiful hand-dyed yarn. This is from Ba Yarns. This is La Jolla, and it is the Blue Magic colorway, so it's kind of a speckly blue. When I bought this, I have 2 of them. I was initially just thinking about making a simple tee out of it, probably like my Quotidian Tee pattern, but I don't know if I would necessarily wear this regularly. Just being a light blue, it's not necessarily something that like fits super consistently into my wardrobe. But what I am thinking would be really nice is doing this with like a cream or light gray stripe, because I currently have a blue and white striped tee that I wear all the time, and having that striping just kind of makes it, you know, something that I reach for regularly. So having something that I already know exists, works, etc. in what I currently reach for in my wardrobe, recreating that in a hand knit version could be potentially cool. I would have to find the cream or light gray yarn to pair with this to make the stripes, but this would kind of be that base color. And I might end up using my Quotidian Tee pattern just like as a base to then insert stripes onto. And I would probably do just like 2 rows by 2 rows of each color. So 2 rows of this, 2 rows of the light solid color that I would be planning to use. And I think that would be a really cute t-shirt. So that's kind of the idea that I have here. Again, not a super solid plan, but something kind of like that's been floating in the back of my head as something that I might like to wear. And the last yarn that I have here is this. This is Luette Euroflax, and this is, I think, older than I am. So this is my grandmother's yarn, and I have inherited a portion of my stash, this yarn included. I've actually already used some of this to knit a top to go over my wedding dress about 5 years ago. So I loved working with it then. I still have quite a bit left. So I was thinking about knitting a t-shirt or a tank top in the rest of this yarn to kind of, you know, keep her memory alive. She's been gone for for nearly 30 years now. So I was very young when she passed, but I still have these little mementos of her and would love to be able to turn them into something that I will love to wear and keep her memory alive. So this is definitely one where I don't have solid plans attached with this at all. So this is listed as a sport weight yarn, but when I worked it up in the wedding dress topper, I was kind of getting the gauge that I kind of get with like fingering weight yarns and that sort of thing. So I should be able to use this in other fingering weight patterns that I knit. I'll probably need to re-gauge swatch and not like rely on the gauge from that project, because that was like, as I said, 5 years ago that I worked that, or almost 5 years ago. So there's a strong possibility that my gauge is now different. But again, no clear plans with this one yet, but definitely a tee or tank of some sort. And I think it'll be just really nice and classic with a beautiful cream color. Thanks for joining me today as I chatted through all of my warm weather knitting plans. I definitely have a lot here, and I'm not gonna get through all of these yarns. That's a lot of garments to be able to make in just a few months, especially when you consider the rate that I've been knitting lately, which is less than a sweater a month. Maybe I'll get to a sweater a month, but if we go by historical trends, that's probably not going to happen. I have like 12 projects here, so I absolutely will not get to all 12 of these over the next couple of months. I'm kind of like defining summer as like April, which we're already like a good chunk through the end of August. So, but that's only like 4.5 months from now to the end of summer. I don't think it would be any kind of reasonable to expect myself to knit 12 projects in 4.5 months. So hopefully I could get to maybe like 6 of them, especially since 2 of them are kids projects and I definitely want to work on those. So maybe I could do like 4 adult sweaters and 2 kid sweaters. So we'll see how far I get on these. I'm really excited about all of these yarns. I really love the color palette that I have for all of these projects, and I'm excited to continue sharing these with you. If you want to continue following along, be sure to like and subscribe. I have a podcast that I record every couple of weeks, so you can follow along as I work up all of these spring and summer knitting projects. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.